Hi everyone, this is Rob from flx.bike, and today I'm going to show you how to put together your FLX blade. So before we get into it, one thing that's super important is that these bikes are made to be put together by professionals. If you're not 100% sure in what you're doing, that you can put the bike together in a way that will be safe to ride, please take it to a professional to check it out before you take it on the road. Your life, your health, your safety is very important to us, so please do that for us. But if you do feel confident, here's how to proceed. So we'll just cut through these straps here, and as always, proper knife cutting technique, away from the body, not towards any fingers, appendages, limbs, or relatives, away from the body. So now we'll just crack open this box, and you can do that by pulling on the lip here. The staples will come out, and be careful because they are very sharp and they will cut you, as they have me many times. Crack these open, and you'll notice there's actually two boxes, so that's going to keep your blade protected during shipping. So number one's open, now we'll go for number two. Please be careful of those staples. All right. Ooh, it smells like a new bike. So first thing we'll do here, now that the box is open, is remove everything we can that's not the bike, just to get it out of the way so that we can pull the bike out. So like this, get them out of the way so that we can pull the bike out. All right. If you got the touring package, you can pull your fenders and stuff out. What else have we got here? Oh, what is that? Is that a free gift from FLX? Wow. All right, so now that you've got your hat on, and we did sneak a few of these in some of the blade boxes, so keep your eye out for some free swag. All right, so we've got another box here to get out of the way. Just gonna remove the seat here. All right, so now that everything I could get out is out of the box, I just reach in and pull it out. You may wanna have a friend help you, because it's not the lightest bike in the world. So now that you've got your bike on the ground, the next thing we're gonna do is just start removing all this packaging, get it cleaned up so that we can work on it and put it together. So, need my handy knife. This is the blade with touring package, so you see that it's got the rack on there already. If you didn't order the touring package, your bike will be slightly different, but assembly will be the same up to that point. We're gonna try to do all this cutting away from us and away from the bike, so don't cut through the wheels or anything. If you've got some scissors or wire snips, they may be even better on these zip ties. Okay, so let's get that wheel off. Just set it to the side for now. So what we're trying to do now is two things. One is obviously unpackage the bike, and two is get this battery off, so that we can get it charging while we assemble the rest of the bike. So just keep moving forward on that and being very careful. I'll just cut through the tape here on the battery so we don't scratch it. And we got some tape on this cardboard here. All right, so now that the battery's off, I'm just gonna take the keys from the handlebars here and remove those, so we can get the battery off. Bingo. So now let's just pull that battery off, and we can pull it over to charge. Normally, putting together a bike, my strategy would be to get the front wheel on and the handlebars, just so it's easier to work with and it's not falling over all the time. But I know you're probably anxious to ride, so our focus is to get that battery charging ASAP right now. So after you get the battery off, there's also a big box inside of here which has the charger in it. So we're gonna grab that and charge up the battery. So here's the box that's got the charger and some other things you'll need in it. Open up that box. So inside the box, we've got a few things. One is a one-time use pump. Just in case you don't have that kind of pump, we've included a pump for your first ride. It's not gonna last a long time, but it'll help you get going on your first ride. Also got some sweet FLX lights. You can put those on the bike Your pedals, we'll need those later. This is the disc brake rotor, so super important part. I'll show you how to put those on later. We got some other stuff, user manual, stickers. Here's the charger. I'll show you the other things while we're at it. So this is the phone mount if you got the touring package. If you didn't, you're not gonna get one of these. Tools, we've got all the Allen keys needed to do the job here. In case you're wondering what this is, these are to adjust the front suspension. You just stick them on there and you can adjust them. You probably won't need them though unless you're doing some serious fine tuning. Now we're gonna charge the bike up. We'll just open up the battery charger, get it unwrapped, plug it in, and if you're in a country with a different standard for the charger, this is a standard computer plug. I forget the name of the standard, but this is in the back of every desktop. If you need a different one, if you're traveling or whatever it is, you can just find a desktop computer charger to plug in here. Okay, so now that we've located our ground outlet, we're just gonna plug the battery charger in and then plug the battery in. So once the battery's plugged in, you'll notice the light on the battery charger will turn green. The fan will also go off. I don't know, for some reason, my ground outlet doesn't have power, but you should have better luck with yours. So we'll just leave that charging while we assemble the rest of the bike. So now that the battery's charging, we're gonna get the handlebars on. So we'll just unwrap these. The display's in the center portion, so be very careful not to torque this stuff around too much. So we're gonna need to remove this top stem cap. You notice the cardboard on it to get the stem on. And instead of using a tool, I'm just gonna try and get this off by hand. So there's a screw in here, holding the stem cap on. Oh, nice. All right, now we'll just toss this thing out and keep this, everything. Don't mess with this. If you mess up the headset and get all this stuff confused, it can be tough to put it back together. Trust me. We're gonna flip these handlebars, make sure everything's pointed the right way. Set this to the side for a sec. Examine the cables. Okay, and it looks like it's been twisted one too many times, so that's exactly why we do this. I'm gonna try and drop that right down on the stem. Perfect. So that looks good. The displays come down a bit. We can adjust that later. So these are the handlebars. This is called the stem, and what it's resting on is the steerer tube of the forks. So now that this is on, we'll take the stem cap. There's a little rubber cap on there that's protecting the bolt, keep it from rusting. We'll just stick that right in, and we're gonna start tightening that a bit, but not all the way. There's a lot of methods of fine-tuning this. Find out which one works best for you. Consult your local bike shop, make sure it's done right. So what we want to make sure when tightening this is that the handlebars can't move independent of the fork. These need to move together, or else you'll be in a very bad situation. So we'll just tighten this most of the way, and then we're going to tighten the sides of this, and that clamps down on the steerer tube and it makes them move together. So okay, that's most of the way tightened. Now we can clamp the rest of it. So what I'm looking for is that the forks, the crown of the fork and the handlebars are parallel. The stem is perpendicular to the crown of the forks, and everything's just lined up perfectly, 90 degrees or parallel. Once that is, we can just tighten the bolts on the stem, and we're also, once the bike is assembled, we're also going to check and make sure this is done right. So don't worry if it's not perfect right now. Alright, so now these are moving together, and I'll just pop that cap back on the bolt. Okay, so this screen, we can adjust it later. I like it right there. Need to tighten it up. That looks good. Now that we got the handlebars on, we're going to work at getting the front wheel on. Before we can do that, we'll need to install the disc brake rotor on this wheel. So let's get it unclipped first. If you're wondering what this is actually to protect the axle from rubbing into parts of the bike. So really nice thick piece of plastic there, just some shipping protection. And there she goes. Okay, so now you see, looks like a normal bike tire. The disc brake rotor will go right here. So we're just gonna pop that on real quick. This is the disc brake rotor. Just open that up, pull the screws, bolts off, and wow, look at that. It's a 203mm disc rotor. So you'll notice on the tire there's an arrow which points in the direction that it's gonna roll. This one is pointing counterclockwise. I want to make sure that my rotor matches up, so this is also pointing counterclockwise. So let's just pop this rotor on. They're matching in direction. Get the bolts on. I'll just get these started by hand. Now that they're all in by hand, I'll find the special Torx key. So this is a tool that you'll need to get these bolts in, and we can tighten all these. And if you are cranking these in with a power tool, make sure you put the torque on a low setting to start with, so you don't over torque these bolts. Okay, do you see how it's braking at a super low torque? That's what we want, not too tight to start with. And then we can do the final touch by hand. It's about a quarter turn. Make sure they're nice and tight, but not so tight that they're gonna, break off. Beautiful. Set this wheel off to the side and just make sure that the axle is clean before we install this wheel. So we'll just set it off to the side here, balanced on the drill. So we'll just finish with this packaging, and I'll just cut right through here. Now you notice this is on a block. Remove that and remove the block here. Before we can put the front wheel on, we'll need to do two things. One is remove these yellow blocks. They sit inside of the disc brake pistons and they stop them from being closed during shipping. If they do get closed during shipping, you may need to pry them open with like a butter knife or similar tool. So we'll take those out, and there's one in here which doesn't have the handle on it. That means it broke during shipping, but that's totally fine because these are not used. They're just used for protection. They serve their purpose. We'll throw them away. So next we're going to take off the through axle. So just rotate that counterclockwise and it will come right out. Beautiful. Now we'll just line up the disc brake rotor with the caliper here, and then set the through axle, insert it into here, make sure everything lines up, and just make sure that through axle and everything else is clean. So we'll just turn this. This is too far because if I turn this, one, it's not going to tighten, and two, it's going to be pointed down. I want it to be tight, but I also want it to be facing either up or slightly back. Ooh, so that's perfect tightness. It's definitely not going to come off on me. Make sure yours is tight enough before you ride, every time you ride, that it will not come off, because that will not be fun. So now that I've got the front wheel on, I've just blocked the front tire and the motor here just to get them to stand up. You can always just lean it up against something. Because we're out in the great outdoors, there's not much to lean it up against. Moving on, we'll put the pedals on. So these pedals are very strong, very lightweight. It's a fiber reinforced composite, and left and right have different threads. So it's very important, if you're having trouble getting the pedals in, that you make sure you've got the right one on the right side and the left one on the left side. So they're not marked. I'll just have to use the threads as an indicator. The one that's going to turn to the right and go in, that's the right pedal. That's this one. The one that turns to the left to go in, that means it's angled up to the left. That's the left pedal, and it's going to turn to the left to go in. So to crank these tight, you'll use the largest Allen wrench from the set. We want to make sure this is nice and tight on this crank. If it's not tight and it comes out, there won't be enough force keeping this thing in line with the crank, and you could end up bending a crank or, you know, stripping the threads here, and then you have to replace both of them. Same idea with the right side, but this one is a traditional thread, so we're turning it to the right to get it to go in. Make sure these are lined up before you start putting force on them. If it's lined up wrong and you cross thread it, you're gonna need either a new pedal or a new crank. Make it nice and tight. All right, pedals are on. Remove all the rest of the packaging while we're at it. Next we're gonna throw on the seat post, so just take this cap out here, unwrap the seat post, bingo. And this is the suspension seat post, which comes on the touring package. So you've got about an inch and a half of travel, 40 millimeters of travel I think it is. And we'll open this up, make sure it's turned to the back, and put that seat in. And I like it about this high. So I want to make sure this is tight. You can adjust this a little bit by hand or get your tool on it. Mine is fine by hand right now. Make sure it's nice and tight so that the seat isn't going to move down from your weight once you're riding on it. So it should be kind of hard to close this clasp. Perfect. So now what we're going to do is finish up this installation. All we need to do is stick the battery in and then give the bike a couple once-overs. Make sure all the bolts are nice and tight. Make sure the stem that we put on earlier with the handlebars, make sure that's tight and there's no like extra space there. I'll show you that real quick. The rest of it, I hope you would go through that with your bike mechanic, a professional bike assembler, and just make sure it's ready to ride. We installed this earlier and made sure everything was straight and that it was pretty tight. And to check now that there's no extra space, that we got it tight enough, we're going to do two things. One is lift it up and turn the handlebars. Make sure that goes freely. So that's very free. That's how you like it. So nice free movement. Two is holding the front brake, which is the left brake. We'll turn the wheel to the side and push the bike back and forwards. Now, if this is adjusted wrong, you'll hear kind of a click. That means there's too much space in the headset. I don't hear any clicks in here, so it seems like we adjusted it just right. So if you do hear some clicks in here, what you can do is loosen these back up, these 1, 2, 3 bolts, loosen it up a little bit, tighten the top one, tighten the two lower ones, try it again until there's no space. Boom, so that stem's not going anywhere. And the stem cap, got another quarter turn on that. Good. Definitely gonna lose this thing. And the cover on the motor, I'll take that off as well. Ah, that looks way better. So now it's pretty much ready to ride. We'll pop in the battery, make sure all the bolts are tight. Obviously, you know, we still need to do a run around, make sure it's safe. But then we can take off, have some fun. So now we'll just insert the battery. Now we can turn the bike on. I got just enough battery to have a little fun with, 31%. So it starts out in 0 eco mode. If I want it to be in sport mode, which is all the power, I just hold plus for 3 seconds. Now it's in sport mode. So that's going to give you a bit more power in all the levels. We're in mode 0. If we put it in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's going to be active now. So if I hit the throttle, it's going to go. So be very careful with that. Don't hit the throttle if you're not trying to go somewhere. So I'll keep it in 0 just to be safe, and we can go for a ride. Alright, 0, now we're in level 1, and it's going to measure how hard you press on these pedals and give you an equivalent amount of power back. It's not much right now, I'm in level 1, let's try level 5. Oh man, that is too much fun. There you have it, that's the blade. Alright, now.